I set up in the security room of the old industrial complex. It was 3 months ago. I was 34 and needed this job to save for my son's college tuition. I'd worked night shifts before, but this place felt different. It was quiet. Too quiet. I sipped my coffee and checked my watch, waiting for the hours to pass. I could never forget those nights. The security room was dimly lit. The flickering lights overhead made it feel more unsettling. I turned on the monitors and scanned the feeds. At first, everything looked normal. Then, one camera showed a static distortion. I thought it was just old equipment, but I felt something prickling at the back of my neck. I shook it off, telling myself it was nothing. As the minutes dragged on, I couldn't shake my unease. Around midnight, I heard a strange thump from Warehouse B. I hesitated but decided to check it out. I grabbed my flashlight and walked down the dark corridor. It was chilly, and my footsteps echoed. I shone my light inside the empty warehouse. There was nothing. I felt both relieved and disappointed as I headed back to the security room. The next few nights were similar. I noticed quick shadows darting across the monitors. They flickered out of view too fast for me to catch what they were. My heart raced each time I saw them. I checked the camera angles. Nothing changed. I started hearing whispers, too. I told myself it was just the wind or the building settling. But deep down, I knew it felt wrong. Then, one night, everything changed. I was reviewing footage when I saw it. A figure in the corner of the warehouse. It was partly hidden, just standing there and watching. I felt frozen. My hands shook as I replayed the video. The figure didn't move. Every time I looked, it was just there, staring at the camera. I called out into the empty warehouse, but there was no answer. I was alone. Or so I thought. After that night, things got worse. Doors creaked open on their own. I felt something brush past me in the corridor like a cold wind. My heart raced every time I had to walk through the dark. I started questioning my own mind. Was I just tired? I didn't know anymore. I had to find out what was happening. Then one night I saw the figure again. This time, it was much closer, standing at the edge of the camera's view. My breath caught in my throat. I realized then that I wasn't just watching. It was watching me. I felt a wave of panic hit me hard. I hurried to check the other monitors, but my hands trembled. The room felt alive, as if the walls were closing in. I wasn't sure how I would handle the next shift. Would the figure come closer? Would I be safe on my own? I wished I had answers. I could only dread what the next night would bring. There was something in the air, something dark, and I couldn't escape it. When I returned from my shift, a knot twisted in my stomach. I tried to brush off my anxiety. I arrived at the security room and took a deep breath. The monitors flickered to life, casting an eerie glow across the walls. I sat down, but I was restless. The previous nights haunted me. I decided to review the footage from the last 2 weeks. My eyes darted over the screens. There was the usual blip of movement here and there. Nothing seemed too alarming at first, until I reached a clip from a night when a storm raged outside. Right in the middle of the footage, a loud bang echoed through the warehouse. I jolted at the sound. I felt the chill wash over me as I rewound to watch it again. That wasn't the only thing that stood out. In the corner of the screen, the figure appeared again, not just standing still but moving, slowly, toward the camera. I nearly fell off my chair. My heart raced, pounding against my chest. Was it coming toward me, or was I just imagining it? I felt desperate to understand. I tried to shake it off, but my mind was spinning. I needed to prove I wasn't losing it. So I grabbed my flashlight and headed to Warehouse B. The air grew heavy with each step I took. The closer I got, the more I felt like I wasn't alone. Shadows slipped and danced around me, but I forced myself to move forward. When I entered the warehouse, the weight of silence settled over me. My flashlight beam cut through the darkness. As I scanned the room, there was nothing. I cursed under my breath, feeling foolish. Maybe I was making mountains out of molehills. I turned to leave, but then I stopped. Something caught my eye, a piece of paper fluttering in the corner by the door. I approached slowly. It seemed out of place, almost like it was calling to me. My gut told me not to touch it. But curiosity won. As I reached down to grab it, I felt a cold breeze rush past me. It sent chills down my spine. Looking down, I saw that it was a torn photograph, an image of the warehouse, but the foreground showed a familiar figure. My heart dropped. It was a clearer view of what I had seen on the monitors. The figure had eyes that seemed to glimmer even in the dim light. I squinted, trying to make sense of it all. Suddenly the air shifted. The temperature dropped, and I heard a soft whisper just behind me, too quiet to understand. I turned, expecting to see someone. But the warehouse remained empty. Only the drumming of my heart filled the silence. That's when I saw it. The figure, right at the edge of the beam of light from my flashlight. It wasn't hidden anymore. My breath caught in my throat as our eyes met. There was a horrible familiarity to its gaze. I froze, paralyzed by fear. Then everything went dark. The lights overhead cut out, plunging me into complete blackness. My pulse thundered in the silence. I felt my way back toward the exit, desperate to flee. But as I stumbled, I heard it again. The whisper, now louder, more insistent. Someone was in the warehouse with me. My heart raced as I felt my way through the dark. I was completely disoriented. A creeping terror threatened to swallow me whole. The whisper came again, this time right next to my ear. I spun around, instinctively raising my flashlight, but there was nothing there. No signs of life, no shadows darting away, just the oppressive silence of the warehouse. I felt the cool air brush against my neck, and the hairs stood on end. I had to get out. I quickened my pace, but my foot caught on something. I stumbled and fell hard, hitting the cold concrete floor. Pain shot through my knee, but I pushed it aside. Panic filled me as I scrambled to my feet and shoved my flashlight towards the ground. That was when I saw it. A set of footprints, fresh, leading deeper into the warehouse. I hesitated, my instincts screaming at me to run. But curiosity and fear had me locked in place. The prints weren't just any footprints. They were too small, too delicate for an adult. My stomach sank. The figure. What if it was a child? Or worse, something else entirely I wasn't about to find out. I ran toward the entrance where I thought I had come from, but the layout felt altered. The shelves seemed to loom larger in the dark, almost like they were closing in on me. Each step felt slower than the last, but the whispering grew louder. It echoed through the empty spaces like an ominous chant. I was hyper-aware of every creak and groan of the building. I reached for my radio, hoping to reach someone. "Hello? Is anyone there?" I whispered, though I didn't want anything to hear me. Static hissed back, cutting through the silence like a knife. Then something brushed against my shoulder. I screamed and whirled around, my flashlight beam cutting through the darkness. My breath came in panicked bursts. I was met with the same haunting figure from the photograph, the one with glimmering eyes. It stood just out of reach, a gap of light between us. The light quivered, making the figure shimmer like a mirage. I stared in horror, realizing I could see more of it now. Its features were indistinct yet unsettlingly familiar. "Leave," the figure urged, the whisper almost musical. It wasn't a voice. It was a feeling that surged in my chest, a command that demanded I leave. I stumbled back, desperately trying to process what I was seeing. My instincts kicked in, and I turned hard on my heel, racing for the exit. Just as I reached the door, it slammed shut. No one was there. Whatever fear gripped me, it wasn't just the unknown. It was something real, something I couldn't dismiss. I pounded on the door, frantically searching for the way out, for help, for anything to break this nightmare. Then the whisper returned, flooding my senses. "Come back." It crooned softly, echoing in a loop. A chill shot through me, paralyzing my limbs. I was stuck. Suddenly the lights flickered back on, illuminating the warehouse. There was no sign of the figure, no footprints. The space felt eerily normal, yet my heart still thundered in my chest. I grabbed the door handle and yanked it, stumbling into the corridor beyond. I needed answers. I couldn't pretend this was nothing. As I composed myself and stumbled out into the night, I realized I was in a fight against something I didn't understand. And this was only the beginning. I took a deep breath, trying to calm the racing pulse in my ears. The night air felt heavy, almost suffocating. I shook my head to clear my thoughts. What had just happened? I couldn't shake the image of the figure from my mind. Was it real? Or had my imagination conjured it from the shadows? The parking lot looked just as empty as when I had arrived, but I felt like I was being watched. I turned to look back at the warehouse, the flickering lights casting eerie shadows. A chill ran down my spine, but I forced my feet to move toward my car. I needed to get away from here. As I fumbled with my keys, I noticed something on the ground. I squinted and bent down to take a closer look. It was a small object, half buried in the gravel. I picked it up. It was a broken watch, the glass face cracked, but the hands still moved, frozen at 2:47. I glanced back at the warehouse, thinking about the footprints and the mysterious figure. Was this watch connected? I set the watch back down, realizing I wasn't ready to take anything else from this place. I climbed into my car, shaking off the sense of dread that clung to me. The radio crackled to life as I started the engine, but it only offered static, a reminder of the communication failure earlier. I hit the power button, but the buzzing noise only increased. Frustrated, I turned it off and pulled out of the lot. Halfway down the street, I received an alert on my phone. I glanced at the screen, a message from my colleague Tony. "Did you see the footage? Something strange happened in the warehouse last night." My heart dropped. I hadn't even thought about the security cameras. I pulled over to check it out, anxiety twisting my stomach. I clicked on the video link and began to watch. At first, nothing seemed off, just the usual dark rooms and idle shelves. But then I saw it. A shadow darted across the screen. It flickered in and out of view, moving too quickly to be a person. The camera angle shifted, adjusting to capture movement at the edge of the frame. My breath caught in my throat. The same figure I had seen earlier appeared, standing still for a moment before disappearing just as quickly. A chill washed over me. What was this thing? A sudden noise broke my focus. The rhythmic tapping against my window sent my heart racing. I turned to see a child standing outside, small and hollow-eyed, their mouth moving yet no sound emitted. Was this another illusion? I barely made out any features, except for those glimmering eyes. My instinct screamed at me to drive off, but curiosity rooted me in place. "Come back," the child mouthed, an echo of the whisper I had heard. I could feel panic clawing at my throat. It was as if something was pulling me, stronger than fear. Then I joined the child, saying, "Who are you?" It barely broke a whisper, but I knew they had to be connected to the figure. Before I could react, the child turned and bolted down the street, disappearing into the shadows. I felt a compulsion to follow, even as a voice inside urged me to flee. The night was getting darker, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being drawn deeper into something far from ordinary. I stepped on the gas, chasing after them into the unknown, ready to unravel this mystery, no matter the cost. I followed the child down the winding street, my heart pounding against my chest. The shadows grew thicker, creeping in on me like a shroud as I drove further away from the familiarity of the parking lot. Streetlights flickered overhead, casting brief flashes of illumination that felt like a tease, a glimpse of safety, only to be swallowed back into darkness. I rounded a corner and the child appeared again, darting across the road ahead. I slammed on the brakes, the tires screeching, and I barely managed to stop in time. I took a moment to catch my breath and scanned the area. The child stood there for a heartbeat, then turned to look back at me, their eyes wide and unreadable. "Wait!" I shouted. But instead of stopping, they took off toward an alleyway. I hesitated, torn between following and the instinct to drive away. But I felt this insane need to know who they were. I pulled into the alley, the sound of gravel crunching beneath my tires echoing off the walls. The alley was narrow, shadows clinging to the brick as if hiding secrets. I got out, the cool air biting my skin, and called out, "Where are you?" Silence wrapped around me. I stepped deeper into the dark, glancing around. It felt like I had tangled myself into a web of danger. That's when I saw it, a flicker of movement at the far end. I rushed toward it, my pulse quickening with every step. As I approached, the ground underfoot became uneven. I stumbled, my foot catching on something. I looked down, and the world tilted. I had tripped over a small, unfinished mural that had been partially obscured by a patch of weeds. It depicted a child with the same hollow eyes as the one I was chasing. My breath hitched. "Who did this?" I whispered, feeling a strange pull towards the wall. As I brushed off the weeds, a name appeared, scrawled underneath. Lena. A shiver rolled through me as I recalled the moments, the whispering child outside my car. I turned to look again, hoping to catch another glimpse, but the alley remained empty. Frustrated, I pulled out my phone, determined to capture a photo of the mural. I needed to document this. As I focused the camera, the screen flickered, and the image distorted. That's when I heard it, a soft giggle echoing from the darkness behind me. I whipped around, heart hammering in my chest. "Lena!" I called, voice trembling. No response, just the sound of my breath heavy in the night. But then I felt a chill sweep over me, and something whispered in my ear, a voice that was both familiar and foreign. "Come play." I froze, the words wrapped around me like a grip, urging me to let go of my fear. The alley had transformed, shadows pooling deeper, and the darkness thick enough to touch. I took a step back, my instincts screaming to run, but curiosity pushed me on. Who was this child? What did they want from me? Then everything went dark. The sudden silence shattered my nerves. The streetlights blinked out, leaving me alone in a void. Panic surged, and I stumbled blindly in the darkness, suddenly aware that whatever was happening had just escalated. "Lena!" I shouted one last time, but the only response was the echo of my own voice. I turned to head back, but something cold brushed past me, a fleeting presence. I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever had been watching me was now closer than ever. I needed to get out of the alley. Whatever game was being played, I didn't want to be a part of it anymore. The darkness pressed tight around me, and I felt lost. Each step felt like wading through thick fog. I blinked, hoping to adjust to the shadows, but my surroundings remained a swirling black. I took a deep breath and tried to recall the way back. Suddenly a sound broke the silence, a soft rustle. I froze, straining to listen. It was faint but unmistakable. Footsteps. Someone, or something, was moving nearby. "Who's there?" I called out, my voice trembling. No answer. The rustling stopped, and an eerie stillness enveloped me. My heart jumped. I needed to find a way out. I turned back toward the alley's entrance, fumbling for my phone. A bit of light would help me regain my bearings. But as I turned on the flashlight, the beam flickered and then died completely. Cursing under my breath, I shoved my phone back into my pocket and squared my shoulders. I had to keep moving. I took a step toward the exit, the pungent smell of dampness filling my nostrils. That's when I saw it again, a quick flash of movement in the corner of my eye. A figure darting near the wall, too fast to recognize. Panic flooded my veins. Was it the child? Was it something worse? "Lena!" I shouted into the abyss, desperation spilling over, but the darkness remained indifferent, absorbing my plea without answer. I pressed on, determined to get out, but the alley was twisting and shifting like a living entity. Each turn felt wrong, leading me deeper into the shadows rather than toward freedom. Just when I thought I might find a way, another echoing giggle pierced the silence. It was closer this time. Was it in my head? "No, no, no," I muttered to myself, forcing my feet to move faster. I reached a dead end, brick walls on either side, towering and unforgiving. I felt a wave of claustrophobia close in. Backing away, a low whisper drifted through the air, brushing against my ear like icy fingers. "Play with me." This time I couldn't contain my fear. I turned and sprinted toward where I thought the entrance lay. I barely felt the uneven ground, my thoughts racing. If I could just find another way out. That's when I stumbled upon something essential. An open door. It swung slightly, barely illuminated by the faintest hint of light spilling out. Relief washed over me as I darted toward it, forgetting everything else. Hesitating for only a moment, I rushed inside. The room was small and dimly lit, and the flickering light bulb swung slightly, casting shadows that danced along the walls. I pressed my back against the door, breathing heavily as my eyes adjusted. I scanned the space. Old furniture lay about, discarded toys, stacks of papers, and several broken-down cameras strewn across the floor. My stomach dropped when I realized what I was looking at. A recording studio. The faint glow of a monitor caught my eye, displaying various feeds, each showing different angles of the alley outside. The last one flicked on, and my breath caught as I saw her, Lena, standing just outside the door, looking directly at the camera. Fear entwined with confusion. Why was she there? Why was she watching me? I was about to push the door open when she smiled, a wide, haunting smile that sent chills down my spine. And then the screen went black. My heart raced as I stood there in the dim room staring at the black screen where Lena had just been. I felt a twisting in my gut, a growing sense of dread. Was she still out there? I had to find her, but I couldn't shake the feeling that my next move could be dangerous. I stepped cautiously to the monitor, hoping to trigger the footage again, but it remained dark. The faint light from the flickering bulb overhead was my only source of illumination. I searched for a way to make the screen work again, tapping at buttons, but all I managed was a few random clicks that produced only static. Then I heard it, the soft sound of giggling again, but this time it was coming from inside the room. I whipped around, scanning the shadows, feeling my pulse pounding in my ears. There was something distinctly wrong. The toys scattered on the floor looked strangely placed, almost like they had been arranged for a game. "Lena?" I called out again, hoping against hope that she would answer, that she was safe. Silence stretched back, suffocating. I noticed a door on the far side of the room slightly ajar. It was old and cracked, the edges worn with age. Curiosity and fear warred inside me. If I didn't check it out, I felt like I'd always wonder what lay behind it, but every instinct screamed at me to stay away. With a deep breath, I approached the door. Each creak of the floorboards beneath my feet felt like a warning. I grasped the door's handle, cold and slightly sticky, and pushed it open just enough to peek inside. My eyes widened at the sight. It was a small closet, cluttered with old costumes and props, all covered in a thin layer of dust. But what caught my eye was the wall directly in front of me. A series of pictures taped up, all of Lena from various ages. She looked happy in some, sad in others. But then my gaze landed on a photo that made my stomach drop. It was an image of her, standing in front of the very alley I'd just been in, a blank expression on her face that sent chills down my spine. I stepped back, ready to shut the door when the giggle rang out again, louder this time. I gasped, slamming the closet shut. My mind raced. Was Lena in here with me? Or was there something else? Something I couldn't see? Before I could think clearly, another sound broke through. The unmistakable shuffle of small feet. My heart nearly stopped. Had I really been alone all this time? I turned around to confront whatever was in the room with me. Then the overhead light flickered violently, plunging the room into darkness. "Lena!" I shouted, panic overwhelming me. I felt my way back to the door, but it was as if the shadows were reaching for me. My fingers fumbled against the handle, and I realized with a jolt that it was locked. The giggling crescendoed, and I could have sworn I heard a voice, tiny and high-pitched, echoing, "Play with me forever." That was when the door rattled violently. Next, I heard a terrible scraping sound behind me growing louder and closer, and I knew I had to escape. My breath caught in my throat as I braced for whatever was about to come through that door. The door burst open with a bang, and a gust of cold air enveloped me. I stumbled back, nearly tripping over a pile of forgotten toys. My eyes squinted against the darkness, but all I could make out were shifting shadows. "Lena?" I managed again, my voice low, trembling. I didn't know what was in front of me, but the giggling transformed into a chorus of voices, all whispering in tangled harmony. I needed a plan. My heart raced as I dashed toward the nearest window, adrenaline propelling me forward. I tugged at it, but the frame wouldn't budge. Panic bubbled up, and I shoved against it until my shoulders ached. I glanced back at the open door, praying I wouldn't see something emerging from the shadows. The giggles continued, mocking me even. Rattling sounds echoed behind me again, heavy and deliberate like a small parade ready to march on. I dashed to the closet door I'd just closed, hoping it offered some refuge. My fingers fumbled over its cold handle, and I pulled it open, not caring how dusty it was. Inside, shadows shifted along the walls. I tried to suppress my fear and scoured the space looking for anything I could use. Then I saw it. A small flashlight, barely functional but enough to shine some light. I seized it and shoved it in my pocket, hearing the chaos swirling behind me. The scraping sound intensified, now mixed with a soft thumping. It felt dangerously close. I swallowed hard, hoping my heart wouldn't betray me. With urgency, I slipped back into the remnants of the room. The flickering bulb above briefly illuminated the space, revealing unsettling shapes that danced in the corners. Was I losing my mind? The voices grew louder, and I could almost make out phrases now. Stay with us, and you can't leave. I clenched my fists, resisting their eerie call. I wasn't staying, and I wasn't playing. I turned and ran toward the back of the room. In the far corner, partially obscured by an old armchair, was a door I hadn't noticed before. It was simple and unassuming, but it felt like my only chance. I rushed to it, glancing over my shoulder as the shadows shifted again, closing in. The moment I reached the door, I tried the handle. It turned with surprising ease, and I pushed it open just in time to hear something scrape across the floor behind me. I burst through the doorway, slamming it shut, and leaned against it, listening for what might come next. The corridor was empty, but something felt wrong. I turned my head just enough to see the flickering light spilling out from the room I had left. I pressed my back against the wall, afraid to move but equally terrified to remain where I was. That's when I saw it. A handprint, smudged but unmistakable, left on the door I had just shut. The print was small, too small, and a jolt of dread shot through me again. It wasn't Lena's. I needed to know where she was. I needed to find her. The shadows were closing in and time was running out. I took a deep breath and stepped into the hallway, determined yet terrified, ready to face whatever came next. I moved cautiously down the hallway, my senses heightened. Each creak of the wooden floorboards threatened to betray my presence. I glanced back, half expecting to see someone, or something, following me. But the corridor remained dark and silent, save for the sound of my breathing. At the end of the hallway there was a flicker of light coming from under a door. My heart raced. It could be a way out, or it could lead me deeper into whatever madness this place had to offer. I felt an odd mix of fear and curiosity tugging me closer. I stepped toward the door and hesitated before turning the knob. It was locked, the handle refusing to budge. Then, a distant sound caught my attention. A low humming, almost like a lullaby. The voice was soothing yet chilling. I strained to listen but couldn't grasp the words. It seeped into the air around me, wrapping its fingers around my thoughts. I shook my head, forcing myself to focus. I had to keep moving. To my left, I noticed a small window at the end of another corridor. It was grimy, but appeared to extend to the outside. The thought of fresh air and escape spurred me on. I darted down the hall and reached for the window. The latch was stuck, but I tugged at it frantically. Finally it clicked open and the window creaked as I pushed it up. Suddenly, a chill rushed through me, a feeling I couldn't shake. I glanced back toward the direction of the door with the light. The humming intensified, now joined by soft whispers that thickened the air around me. It was drawing me back like a magnet. I swallowed hard, uncertain of my next move. My heart dropped as I noticed movement behind the glass of the window. At first it looked like shadows, but then I saw them. Figures lingering beneath the dark sky, their forms indistinct but unmistakably there. Were they watching me? Panic fought against my need to breathe. I backed away slowly, heart hammering in my chest. Just then, I caught sight of something on the floor. A toy, brightly colored and oddly out of place. It was a small, broken action figure, its face marred by dirt, but I recognized it. It was one Lena used to play with. The realization sent a jolt through me. She had been here. I picked it up, my fingers trembling. If Lena had been here, where was she now? The air thickened with an urgency I couldn't ignore. I needed answers. Then I heard it, a door creaking open nearby. My body tensed and I darted toward the window again, hoping for escape. But the whispers grew louder, now echoing in the corridor. "Come play with us. Stay with us." They called to me, luring me back into the shadows. I raced back toward the door I had initially found. But as I reached for the handle, it swung open without resistance. I stumbled through, my heart racing as I entered the room, and that's when I saw it. A reflection staring back at me in the dim light. Something small and familiar. It was a child, with dark hair and wide, innocent eyes looking directly at me. The same eyes I'd been searching for. But when I blinked, the figure vanished into thin air, leaving nothing but an unsettling silence. I turned to run, fear igniting my legs, but the door slammed shut behind me. I was trapped. I pounded on the door, my fists pounding against the solid wood. "Let me out! Lena!" Panic coursed through me as I rattled the handle, but it wouldn't budge. I could almost hear the whispers again, echoing all around me, beckoning me. I stopped, breathless, my heart a thunderous drum in my ears. The realization that I was truly trapped sent a jolt of dread through my veins. The bare walls rose around me, closing in like a tomb. I stumbled back, forcing myself to calm down. I had to think. There had to be a way out. That's when I noticed another door along the opposite wall, slightly ajar. Hesitation warred with desperation. If this place was a trap, who knew what would be on the other side? But staying here felt like succumbing to whatever darkness held it. With silent determination, I crept toward the door, the whispers growing softer as I focused. I pushed it open, and a rush of fresh air spilled out, filling my lungs with a hint of freedom. I stepped inside, and my heart skipped a beat. The room was empty save for an old wooden table in the center, cluttered with rusty toys and stacks of faded drawings. One caught my eye. A colorful, childlike rendition of a girl standing in front of a tall building, its sketches lopsided yet somehow familiar. A chill danced down my spine. It was the warehouse, the very one where I had first spotted Lena. Just as my fingers grazed the edge of the drawing, I heard a soft giggle behind me. I turned sharply. There, standing in a shadow near the door, was Lena. Her dark hair flowed around her face, eyes wide and luminous, a spark of mischief mingled with something more profound, something haunting. "Lena," I gasped, heart racing. "Where have you been? I've been looking for you." But she only giggled and beckoned me closer, spinning on her heels as if she was inviting me to join a game. The sound sent an icy thrill through me. This wasn't the child I wanted to see. The aura around her had shifted, enveloping me with an uneasy familiarity. In a flash, she darted back into the hallway, her laughter echoing as the shadows danced along the walls. I hesitated, fear clawing at my instincts, then followed, determined not to let her slip away again. As I stepped back into the corridor, the whispers swelled, now a cacophony of voices urging me to play. "Come back," they cooed. "Stay with us." I chased after Lena's fleeting silhouette, winding through the maze of dimly lit hallways. But the deeper I went, the darker it became, as if the shadows themselves were alive, swallowing every flicker of light, twisting my surroundings. I couldn't let fear overtake me. I had to find her. Suddenly the whispering changed, becoming frantic as if they sensed my resolve. "Play with us. Forever." The voices intertwined, gaining volume until I felt my ears ring with their demands. My breath quickened as I stumbled into a large open space. The room was filled with broken toys and scattered papers, remnants of forgotten laughter. But it wasn't only filled with remnants, it was alive with movement. Shadows flickered across the walls, darting and swirling around me, and at their center stood Lena, grinning wide, her eyes gleaming. "Play with me," she insisted again, her innocence now tinged with a terrifying hunger. The shadows twisted, forming shapes that danced at the edge of my vision, and I felt their presence pressing down on me, urging me to join their haunting game. "No!" I shouted, backing away. I couldn't succumb to this. I wouldn't. The room quaked with energy as if the very walls pulsed with the power of those lost souls, binding me to their fate. But then I caught sight of something beneath the chaos, another drawing lying crumpled on the ground. I bent down, desperately brushing off the dust, revealing the image. It depicted a child, similar to Lena but trapped in shadows, casting a knowing gaze. It was a warning. I needed to break the connection. Taking a deep breath, I raised my voice above the roiling whispers. "I'm not here to play. I want you to leave her alone." The shadows shimmered at my words, momentarily faltering. Lena's expression shifted, confusion flickering across her features. I took the chance, pressing on. "This isn't a game. You are free to go." Her smile wavered, uncertainty creeping into her eyes. I reached out. "You don't belong to this place, Lena. You have the power to leave too." The shadows convulsed, swirling angrily as they tightened their grip. "Stay with us," the voices cried, now a desperate wail. "No!" I shouted, my defiance coiling around me like a lifeline. "You don't own her!" In that moment of sheer will, something shifted. Lena's face transformed. A flicker of recognition crossed through her wide eyes. The shadows released their grasp, dissipating with a collective sigh, as if acknowledging defeat. Breathless, I rushed forward, taking Lena's hand. Together, we turned toward the door. "Let's go." As we reached it, the world twisted, shadows swirling in a chaotic tempest. With one final push, I flung the door open. Blinding light flooded the space, and we were pulled through, tumbling onto the pavement just outside the warehouse. We landed on the cold ground, disoriented but free. The hum of the night surrounded us, normalcy rushing back like a tide. I blinked up at the starlit sky, trying to catch my breath. But just as I turned to check on Lena, she was gone, vaporizing into the very shadows from which she had escaped. I was left alone, heart racing, breathless with the weight of what had just happened. Questions lingered in the air. Was she truly gone? Was it a trick of the night? I pulled my knees to my chest, staring at the warehouse, a silent monument to the horrors that had unfolded within. And though I escaped, the feeling of eyes still watching me from the shadows never truly faded. I moved on, searching for peace, but behind every flicker of darkness, I could still hear whispers reminding me of the game that could never quite end. I left town a week later, searching for a new start, but I still think about that night. Occasionally, I wonder about Lena, if she's still out there playing in the shadows, waiting for someone to join her.